In this video, I'm actually driving a desirable car. It is the Porsche 911. But don't worry, it's an SC. That's not the most desirable one. Yes, this is a 1982 Porsche 911 SC Super Carrera. They reckon that it's what it stands for, but there's nothing super about it at all. It's actually the base model 911, although that's a range of two cars effectively. This is the naturally aspirated version, and you could also of course have the turbo with the all of the power, but only a 4-speed gearbox, whereas this has a 5-speed. Classic ferry Porsche, or was it Butsy Porsche styling. Is definitely one of the sons of Ferdinand. Came up with this remarkable shape, very dramatic. Rear engine of course in best 911 tradition, and we've got these lovely fuchsia alloys, or maybe they're steel, I don't know. They're very nice wheels anyway. As the train goes past, the big impact absorbing bumpers, which somehow Porsche managed to fit to these cars. Just ignore the train going past, without detracting from the styling quite so much. They actually work. They seem part of the coherent design. And with no engine at the front, you get this remarkably low bonnet line. This one does have paint blemishes. The owner is going to rectify those. But yeah, it's a very classic shape, very iconic, even though this is not the most powerful version. The engine is a 3-litre flat 6, which we'll take a look at in a moment. It produces 204 brake horsepower, although when the SC first came out in 1978, it had only 180 horsepower. I mean, that's not a problem here. I'm in New Zealand, where the speed limit is rarely, if ever, more than 100 kilometers an hour, and we're into the Christmas holidays now, and the police are being super vigilant. So enjoying myself wheel spinning down the road, I will not. But nonetheless, we should probably take more of a look around this car, and we'll start with the engine. So here is the engine, the 3-litre flat 6, same 3-litre capacity as the turbo, but with no turbo. You can't really see a fat lot, but I am amused at how similar it looks to the Invercar, which is hardly surprising. The Invercar's Steyr-Puch engine seems very closely inspired by Volkswagen's flat 4, and Porsche designed the Beetle and then built their own engines, which are just an evolution of that platform really. We've got fuel injection, so there's the metering head tucked away up there. You can just about see that bank of cylinders. So there's 3 there, that's 4, 5 and 6 along there, and 1, 2, 3 on this side. I can, got a handy little diagram here to tell me. It also tells what the valve clearances are, which are tiny, 0.1 of a millimetre. But I suppose maybe that's because you've kind of almost got the camshaft acting directly on the valves, as shown in this handy little diagram. That's just gold for the sake of gold. Maybe you can add your own information at a later date. And we've got the tyre information as well. It's a dry sump, so the oil filter is over here, and there's an oil sump effectively, and it's not a sump, is it? It's a container over here. There is no sump on the bottom of the engine, and that's better if you're driving at high speed and throwing the car around. You're not running the risk of starving the pickup of oil, or sloshing it around and getting it in places you don't want it, which creates lots of excessive smoke. So probably a very sensible solution. I'm guessing that's a fuel filter over there. The fuel tank is of course down the front, but there you go, that's the engine. Beautiful. The fuel filler flap is here, so you fill it up at the front, and there we go, that's shut. And then we've got this little area at the front. I have no idea what's in here. It'll be a learning experience for all of us if I can actually release the catch. That's fiddly. There we go. Right, we're in. Yeah, not a fat lot in here. There is a brake servo on these SCs, and there it is. So there must be some interesting pipe work to get that to work here. That was an evolutionary step. Previously the brakes were not hydraulic at all. We've got a space saver wheel there, I guess. That's a very strange construction, slightly peculiar, but yeah, generally not much weight here at the front, so with those new powerful servo brakes you apparently have to be a bit careful stopping in the wet. They can all get a bit slippity. There we go, proper quality. Now the interior is all of the brown, very much of its time. Late 70s, early 80s, brown was king, and there is much brown in here. I'm going to jump aboard so we can have a closer look at all of the things. And what strikes you immediately, just close that to shut some of the ambient noise out, is the driving position is it's very compact. The windscreen is quite close to me, it's not very far from the top of the steering wheel, and the dials are all crammed in, and the speedometer is an angle. Because most of it is blocked by the steering wheel, so you need to be able to see up to about 80 ideally, really, for everyday driving on the road. There is a clock. The second hand doesn't work, but it is still ticking. Maybe you can hear it, maybe you can't. Rev counter dominates the dial pack. Then we've got oil pressure, temperature, oil level, and fuel gauge. Fasten seatbelts. Sensible advice. We've got heated rear window there. Confusing heater controls because we've got some down here, there's a fan there, and some up here, which might be fresh air vents and or defrosting. I'm not really sure. It's a slightly peculiar system. I don't think this is a particularly pleasing steering wheel, but it sits more or less in the right place. But the pedals are quite deeply skewed, so the clutch is over here. And it's got a bit of Peugeot 106 vibe going on because of the big fat front arches, and you do sit quite far forward in the car, it feels. But look at the iconic view down the bonnet. Very much an old car feel going on, as well as the skinniness of the top of the dashboard. Complete contrast to cars, and I'm sure even Porsches of today. Light switch down here, that's just a pull switch. Two settings, hazards, proper relay noises, electric window switches. Is that the mirror? Oh, that looks like it might be electric actually, but we don't seem to have electric on the other side, which is a bit peculiar. You would have thought it would be better to be the other way around and have that one electric, because you can't reach that one. But nonetheless, we've got a electric mirror. We've got these rotating controls to operate the door locks, as you can see there, and that's the release handle there. We've got a little, I've got a little cubby down there, so that could be quite useful. More storage there, speakers, but yeah, mostly wheel arch intrusion. It's a 5-speed gearbox. It is not joyous to use. It's very clunky and a bit stiff, but apparently that's a pretty good gearbox for one of these. There is a Blaupunkt cassette player. I've already got my mobile set up. We have got a sunroof as well, which I think must be electric because I can't see any winding handles. I wonder how that operates then. Is there a switch that looks like it might do a sunroof? I can't see one. Oh, we've got ventilation here as well. That must be to let the air flow through to reach the front of the car, because of course the engine's at the back. But very comfortable, very stylish seats, so they're good. But I'm really puzzled about the sunroof. There must be a switch somewhere I'm missing. I mean, there's various little switches variously for, I don't know if that's for resetting stuff or what. Most intriguing. Tiny little one here for washing the headlamps. We'll have to see if we can get some footage of that later. I will need someone to assist with that footage. But yeah, otherwise I have no idea how you open the sunroof. What's that stalk, I wonder? Most intriguing. I have no idea what that second stalk does. Could it be cruise control? Yeah, that's got fuel injection and it is electronic, so in theory that is possible. May have to try that out. But yeah, otherwise I'm kind of learning on the fly. I've got this car to do a fair few kilometres in, and hopefully that'll be fun. Interesting, got this little zipped part there. Is that so you can hide your drugs in the roof lining? That's very thoughtful of them. I am not even going to attempt to get into those rear seats. I think it's best to say that they're more storage than anything. They do fold down, I think, to offer a bit more of a flat platform. And that's a feature copied over from the 356, I believe. But that's probably enough waffling. We should probably get driving, really. Right, let's go for a drive. The oil level isn't looking too thrilling, so I hope that's going to be okay. So I'm still looking for the elusive sunroof switch, but there really doesn't seem to be one. Got nice interior lights, they seem to work nicely. So maybe we'll just ignore the small matter of the sunroof and listen to the engine, which is mostly fan noise, it must be said. We will do a wiper test before we get underway, I think. There we go. That's probably the most overlap you will ever see on any car anywhere. The fact the passenger wiper comes over to here. So triangle of doom, not even a thing. Some slight corners of disappointment going on. And there is a nasty habit of all the water blowing back up the windscreen on the passenger side, which is why the blades park in front of the driver. That's actually quite sensible to do on these. Quite a long travel clutch. It's an organ pedal throttle, and it goes something like this. So 204 brake horsepower was quite punchy for the early 80s, but this does not feel like a significantly powerful car today. But like I say, I'm in New Zealand, I can't speed, it's just disallowed. So really you just end up enjoying the torque. It's quite a torquey engine, it's got a fair amount of grunt, so you don't have to rev it high. Pretty good steering, I can feel what's going on down there. But it doesn't so much accelerate, it just sort of gathers pace really. It's not a particularly brisk car. It's quite a revvy engine, and I'm taking it fairly easy because the oil temperature is not up yet. I have got an oil temperature gauge. That's an issue as well. There is nowhere for my clutch foot to go, and fifth gear, interesting noise, is embedded in my leg. That's not the most comfortable for cruising. I have to kind of move my foot between the clutch and the brake, which doesn't seem ideal. But if I do the window back up, it's fairly peaceful in here, and maybe a little wind noise, and a fair degree of road noise from those fat tyres. But yeah, it's a pleasant experience, mostly because it feels different. It doesn't feel like other cars. There is nothing quite like a 911. I've got that view of the big wings sticking up. It must be very odd to drive a flat nose 911 because you wouldn't be able to see anything at the front end at all. But this just pottering along at 74 kilometers an hour under 2000 revs. I mean, yeah, we're not really pushing the potential of this car, are we? But I mean, it's just very easy to drive, and these cars soon gained a reputation for being fairly hassle-free. They may not be easy to work on, but they're quite reliable. They were robust in a way, say, a Ferrari would not be. Maybe that's why they gained such a following in America, where the Beetle had already established its cult status. So when Porsche developed something on that platform that eventually evolved into the 911, yeah, it seemed to go down very well in America. They sold loads of them there. It's quite weird to think that this began its life in Texas with a steering wheel over here. But of course, coming from Texas, corrosion certainly isn't an issue, and while some sections of the body shell are galvanized on these, they still know how to rot. Oh, and apparently blacking out your headlamps on your Holden is allowed here, which seems like a bit of a nonsense to me, but then who am I to judge? Oh, here we go, 100 kilometers an hour. it's a pleasant noise. I don't feel I can really extend it in third without running out of speed limit. Interesting transmission whine there. Yeah, this driving position just is not comfortable. Still, this is going better than the first time I ever drove a Porsche 911, because that one broke down twice. Snapped a clutch cable and then started running like an absolute sack of poo. That was, I think it was a 1969 911T. Yeah, that's considerably too fast. Let's slow that back down again. But that's a good noise though, isn't it? Really. That's definitely the sort of noise that is a good noise. And my friend Jim's got one of these and he drives it all over the country. He may have recently got rid of it, but he used to very much use it as his daily runner. And it's just what these cars do. They just go on and on if you look after them. Can be very expensive to run, which is why one won't be appearing on the HubNut fleet anytime soon. But yeah, very, very capable cars. And here we are cruising along at 60, which is as fast as we can go here. And it's peaceful enough, really. Oh, I can confirm the second stalk is cruise control, because I can do that. And we're away. My foot is off. We are cruising. I'm getting used to the gear shift now. It's just a case of finding out how it all works, but definitely finding my way around it. It is a little reluctant. It is quite stubby in the leg, but nonetheless, we're getting there. Of course, not a problem in left-hand drive, because the gear lever is moving away from the driver gradually. You don't generally drive around in first gear. We're actually a few days on now. You'll notice my snazzy dress. I'm dressed for Christmas. It is Christmas Day here in New Zealand, and I finally found a road that I think will be good fun in this car. The roads do seem a little busy, which is a bit frustrating. I was hoping Christmas Day might be quiet. I guess everyone's trying to get over to their relatives ASAP at the moment. Forgot the alarm. Yeah, a few things to do. This oil level gauge only seems to work just as you turn on, so it does it just for a bit, just to tell you where the oil level is. So I'm ignoring that once we're on the move. The oil pressure goes up and down as you'd expect. We've got the temperature there. I've sussed out some things about switches. There is a little switch under here which changes which mirror is adjusted with the control here. It's completely illogical to have two switches quite so far apart. The important thing is I've discovered the sunroof switch, so I can now open the sunroof, but this is New Zealand. I don't necessarily want to do that. There was also a switch I discovered somewhere for the aerial, wasn't there? I can't remember where that one is, but yeah, the switch gear is illogical, the heater controls are illogical. A lot of it just makes no sense at all, so it does take a bit of getting used to, but we'll get to the up to the end and we'll give it beans. So we're going to do an acceleration test, but it is going to be uphill, so it won't be a true 0 to 60, but I'm just going to get to a spot where I can actually see what's coming. It is certainly an engine that likes to rev. But that was us just getting up to 60 before I lifted off. But it is not a ridiculously powerful engine. 204 brake horsepower is less than the big 6-cylinder saloon I'm wafting around New Zealand in at the moment. There's lots of clunks going on. It's such a mechanical gear linkage. It really is very clunky. It's not all that inspiring, to be honest. and it's quite a noisy car. There's transmission noise, there's a fan noise, but yeah, the straight six engine does make rather beguiling noises. I do like the noise these cars make. First gear gives a really good shove, and it can be quite low because it's not going to generate too much wheel spin, because A, it hasn't got that much power really, and B, because it's rear engined, as it squats down to accelerate, that engine is pressing the rear wheels into the ground, which is much better than, say, a front engined rear wheel drive car. This is why 911s and Renault Alpines very good in a hill climb situation, because you're constantly turning. You can get the power on coming out the bend, and it just plants the back end of the car. I mean, the strange thing is, when you're just cruising, this car feels quite ordinary, really. It doesn't feel anything that special. It feels different because you've got the strange humps of the front wing sticking out the front. You've got the noises, the way the cabin sort of almost wraps around you. It's a very classic feeling car, but also engineered in the 1980s way, so or late 1970s. So you've got this odd mix of crazy dashboard with controls just scattered all over the place, but then a serious amount of shove, and yes, we will behave as we drive past this police car. Oh yeah, this is really revealing how slow everyone else is. But yeah, you can really pitch it in and get the power down, knowing that the traction is going to be superb. Because it's no power steering, it weights up beautifully. It tells you just how much the load is. Oh, okay, we won't go further then. How much the steering is loading up, and then you've just got all of that lovely traction. Having all this fun, we're doing 40 miles an hour, 50. Well, there we go. It's not every day I get to do a costume change during a video, but I was very pleased to have the time. Those aren't my skid marks. To have the time to actually really get a really good feel of this car, and to really enjoy putting it through its paces on this remarkable mountain range here in Wellington, New Zealand. Yeah, it wasn't until I really got a chance to give this car the beans that I really discovered just how marvellous it is. Yeah, I can kind of see why Porsche persevered, and of course it drives like nothing else. There are no other cars that come close to that level of well, that type of engineering. Nothing feels like a 911, but yeah, it's very grippy. The steering is very communicative. The engine makes a great noise. It produces what I think is just the right amount of power. I mean, sure, a 930 turbo is going to be a lot more fun in the acceleration stakes, but you can't use turbo performance on the road. Whereas I was using every bit of horsepower that this car has and having a marvelous time. So I think that was definitely yeah, the best way to enjoy this car. 911's not really a typical HubNut vehicle, and still isn't. I don't think I'm about to dash out and buy one, not just because I can't afford one, but yeah, sports cars are still not my bag. But the 911, it's easy to get into, it's dailyable. As sports cars go, it's not too much of a compromise. The ride is even firm, but it is still comfortable. It doesn't jar you, it doesn't crash about. Really, they are supremely well engineered cars. Not perfect by any means. The weird driving position, the clunky gear lever, those aren't good things. Very thankful to Ian for letting me drive this car for an extended period. I don't always get that privilege, and it really does make a difference to be able to spend some time with a car. And yeah, thank you, Ian. Wonderful. And I shall say thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in a future HubNut video. Farewell. Got a sneaky bit of bonus footage for you because we're a few days on and the Porsche is getting naked. It is being stripped for a repaint because the paint isn't perfect in places, especially on the doors around the door mirrors. But it gives an interesting insight into what a Porsche 911 looks like with no clothes on. I'm particularly taken by the trombone here, which is the oil cooler. So this pipework runs the full length of the car all the way to the engine at the back. You've got the dry sump ignition, so there's a reservoir which feeds the engine but also pumps oil around that cooler. And there's the back of that bumper, big old exhaust on the back, so quite intriguing. But this pipework is why the oil capacity of this 3-litre engine is 13 litres, and it must be quite the job to actually drain this all out. And if you were doing a flat nose conversion where the wing line follows the bonnet, you'd obviously have to rejig all this to make space for it. There's an easy solution to that, and that's do not fit a slope nose conversion. I know people who like them, but I'm not one of them. There you go, a little insight into a Porsche 911 with no clothes on. Flat 6 friends.